It's fine. Okay. Now, in the previous class, I think I've covered the concepts of 4NF, BCNF, and 5NF. 4NF, 5NF, and the last one was BCNF. Okay. So I'll be just giving you a simple example on fifth normal form. And I've already given you examples on BCNF, Boyce Codd normal form, and 4NF. So just briefing about what is what, I'll just go from 1 to 4NF. Just within the next 2 minutes, I'll cover that. 1NF removes multiple values with respect to a field of a table. So there's no concept of multiple values. 2NF eliminates the concept of partial dependency. 3NF eliminates the concept of transitive dependency. Along with being in 2NF, it eliminates transitive dependency. Now talking about BCNF, it is said to be a stronger version of 3NF, sometimes called as 3.5 normal form, and you can say that it is Boyce Codd normal form. Boyce Codd normal form. And if at all you have an FD of type A implies B, or A determines B, or you can say C determines DMI, it's up to you. Whatever FD you want to take, you can take. A determines B or B determines C, whatever. So whenever you have FDs of these kinds, if at all the relation has to be in BCNF, then the LHS of the FD should be a super key. The LHS of the FD should be a super key. Then we spoke about what we mean by multi-value dependency. And in order to have multi-value dependency, you should have a minimum of 3 columns in a table. You should have a minimum of 3 columns in a table in order to have multi-value dependency. If at all A, B, C are the 3 columns of a table, A multi determines B, A multi determines C, and there is no dependency existing between B and C, then we say that multi-value dependency exists. And whenever a relation has to be in 4NF, you have to eliminate multi-value dependency. So this is about the 4 normal forms. The relation should be in BCNF, Boyce Codd normal form, and there should be no concept of multi-value dependency while I'm talking about 4NF. And the last one would be 5NF, fifth normal form. Whenever a relation has to be in 5NF, the relation should be in 4NF, meaning it should satisfy all the properties of 4NF indirectly 1, 2, 3, 3.5, and 4 more. So simply we say that it should be in 4NF. Along with that, you have one more condition that needs to be satisfied. One more condition that needs to be satisfied. What is that? Is it should not have joint dependency. It should not have joint dependency, and joining should be lossless. So this particular point you need not mention. Joining should be lossless, need not mention. It's up to you. But the first 2 points. Firstly, a relation capital R is in 5NF if the relation is in 4NF, and it should not have joint dependency. So what we usually do in 5NF is we have to decompose the given relation till it cannot be further non-loss decomposed. So what we have to do is we have to break the relation that is in 4NF into still smaller pieces until it cannot be further decomposed. Until it cannot be further decomposed. That is the meaning of your 5NF. Okay. And what do you mean by joint dependency? Before we actually go to 5NF, what do you mean by joint dependency? See, if a table can be recreated by joining multiple tables, and each of this table have a subset of the attributes of the table, then the table is in joint dependency. So if at all I say I've got a relation R with A, B, C, D as its attributes, A, B, C, D as its attributes. Now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to break this into pieces. R1 is AB, R2 is AC, R3 is AD, then R4 is BC, R5 is BD, and then I have R6 is CD. So see, I cannot further decompose this into pieces. I cannot break R1 into R11 as A and R12 as B. I cannot break this because I won't be able to join them because there is no common relation between R11 and R12 because it has got only a single column in it and A and B are different. So I do not have any way of joining this table back. Here what is happening, I can join R1 and R2 using the common attribute that is A, AB, AC. So what would be the result of R1 and R2? I can directly say as here R12 is the join table. I'll be having A, B, C, wherein A is the common thing. So what I mean by joint dependency is if at all I have got a table, I cannot still further break it into pieces. If a table can't be recreated by joining multiple tables and each of this table have a subset of attributes of the table, then the table is in joint dependency. Okay. I hope it's clear, Ma. Now I'll be talking about 5NF. What I do with 5NF. See, I have a table over here. I have a student, professor, and semester table. Okay, so subject is, it's not student, amma, subject, I'm sorry. I have three attributes. One is subject, the other one is professor, the other one is semester. Subject, professor, semester. Now here, see, Java, Amit 5, C, Asha 3, DBMS, Asha 5. Now looking at each of the columns, ma, subjects are being repeated, professors are being repeated, semester is being repeated. So I have common professor called Asha, I have common subject called data structures and algorithms, and I have common semester called 5 and 3. 5 and 3 are being repeated. So I cannot take a single attribute as a key attribute. Now what I'm trying to do is, in this case, subject plus professor plus semester is the key. Subject plus professor plus semester is the key. And the relations that are existing in the table is subject determines professor, professor determines semester, subject determines semester. So these are the things that are existing. All are keys, so it is blindly in your previous normal form sum. So assuming that this particular table is in what? 4NF, I have to see whether this table can be further decomposed. This table can be further decomposed. If at all I cannot further decompose this particular table into pieces, then this particular table is in 5NF. But here I can blindly say, Emma, subject determines professor. That is what I told you. Subject determines professor. So my one piece would be subject and professor. This is my R1 is subject comma professor. Next, R2 is professor comma semester based on the relations that I got. And lastly, R3. R3 is subject, comma, semester. So these are the three things that are making up the original relation R. So this is my R, and subject, comma, professor, comma, semester is the key, and I'm able to break that into R1, R2, R3. And when I say that this particular table, whatever I've broken is not in 5NF, if at all, it also has joint dependency, meaning if at all, I can further break this R1 subject and R11. I've taken small r's over here, Amma. Don't get confused. Professor. So can I break R1 into two pieces? No, because I won't be able to join that. So this is the last step where I can break the relation. And when this particular decomposition of the relation capital R is in 5NF is whenever I'm trying to join R1, R2, R3, if at all I'm getting R, then I say that this three pieces of the table R is in 5NF. Okay, this three pieces of the table R is in 5NF. Now what I have to do here would be, firstly, I'm trying to join, what I'm trying to do is try to join R1 and R2. Okay, can I join these two things now? Firstly, so I've broken the table because it could be further decomposed. I've broken the table, and I'm assuming that that particular thing is in what? 5NF. Now, when it will be in 5NF is I do not have any loss of information with respect to the original table. Then only I can say that it is lossless. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to join R1 and R2 based on what? Based on professor. So professor is the common thing between the two tables. So I can have a join between R1 and R2. I've already spoken about joins with Puama. So R1 and R2 can be joined based on professor. So what would the new table look like is, I'll write this as R1, R2 table. I'll be having how many fields? One is subject, the other one is professor, the other one is semester. I hope it's clear for you. Because professor is being repeated, I need not write it twice or thrice more. Now, what is the join condition? The join condition is based on professor. So see, subject and professor. First is these two, subject and professor, and next is professor and semester. So in both the cases, Amit is common. So what is the subject Amit is teaching? I can write it as Java. Professor is Amit. Semester is 5. First iteration. Next, Asha. See, Asha is repeated twice. And Asha is teaching C as well as DBMS. So what I have to do? Here I'll be writing C, Asha, and semester is what? 3. Then I'm going with what? DBMS, Asha, and the semester is 5. Okay. Again, in subject and professor, I'll be having one more Asha. So I have to again combine these two things with Asha and Asha again. So what will happen? Again, I'm going to write the same thing over here. Wait a second. I'll be writing this. Ma, are you getting confused, or I'll write it in the new sheet. Wait a minute, Ma. I think I cannot copy this. Control C. Okay, I'll just remove that from there. Wait a second. I hope the definition is clear for you. I'll just remove this one so that I can push the table to the top. One minute, ma. Sorry. Okay. So what I'll try to do over here is I'll just try to fill the data in two tables, ma. I'll just work with R1 and R2 over here. I'm removing all this stuff. Okay. See, I'm just trying to insert subject professor first. Insert table with two columns. Okay, so see, this is subject and this is professor. What will happen? Java, Amit, C, Asha, EBMS, Asha, DSA, followed by Neha. And then I have DSA followed by Sumit. Okay, this is my R1. Based on how I decompose that table, ma. Okay, this is my professor and next is semester. Okay, professor is Amit, semester is 5, Asha, P, Asha 5, and then I've got Neha 3 and Sumit is 3. Okay, I hope it's clear, ma. I'm just pushing this to the top. Now these are the two tables, ma, subject professor, and I've got something called as, it's clearly mentioned over there, right? Now what I'm trying to do, combine R1 and R2. There I'll be having subject followed by professor followed by semester. Okay. Now see, I have, the common thing is professor. So Amit is collaborating with Amit over here. So Java, Amit, semester is 5. Then I have Asha over here and Asha is printed twice over here. So Asha would be clubbed with this particular Asha. Asha would be clubbed with this particular Asha. So now what is happening here is subject is C, AS Asha, followed by semester is 3. Then I've got DBMS, followed by AS Asha, followed by semester is 5. Then I'm going with the third row. Third row again Asha is there. Asha is again here, same value 2 times is there. So what is happening again, ma? Again this would be repeated. DBMS. Here it is CM, not DBMS. C. DBMS. Then I have ASHA Asha, followed by semester is 3. Then DBMS Asha, and semester is 5. Then what I have to do? I have to work again with what? Neha. So I have Neha over here. So this would be giving me DSA, NEHA Neha, semester is 3. Then I've got DSA, Sumit, semester is 3. Fine. I hope you can see the data now, right? So how many rows I've got whenever I've joined two tables, ma? Two pieces of the original relation are, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But how many rows are there in the original relation? 5. So now what is happening? I'm getting some extra information which was not present in the table, original table. Now what I have to do? How many pieces it was divided into initially? It was divided into 3 pieces. Now this is a combination of how many pieces? It is a combination of how many pieces? I can blindly say that it's a combination of only 2 pieces. Now what I have to do? This particular table, I'll say R1, R2. Now what I have to do? I have to join this R1 and R2 with the piece R3. Now, if at all, I have to join in the same way, whatever I've done over here, I have to join in the same way. But the common thing in those 2 cases would be semester. It would be, I think, semester. It would be subject. It would be subject. So, based on the subject, you have to join the next 2 tables. This particular table with the next table. And whenever these 3 joined together is giving you this particular table, then you say that the decomposition is in 5NF. The decomposition is in 5NF, or else it is not in 5NF. So rarely you use 5NF and 4NF in your industry. I've already told you n number of times that. Now, if at all you have any problems with 5NF example, you can just ask me. Sir, why you added common names 2 times? What is it common name, 72? What do you mean by that? In example, so see, whenever I'm talking about Asha over here, Asha is mapping with, this is table R1, this is table R2. Asha is mapping with Asha here twice. Yes or no? The joint condition is based on professor. So whenever I'm talking about Amit, I have got only one Amit over here. So Amit and Amit, Java, Amit, 5. That is 1. Now whenever I'm talking about the next row, Asha over here, Asha is equal to 2 times Asha over here. So Asha who teaches semester 3, Asha who teaches semester 5. So that is the reason C Asha 3, C Asha 5. Then in the third row, I've got one more Asha over here. Here DBMS Asha 3, DBMS Asha 5. That way you have to join. Is it clear? 72? Or you have any problems, 72. Roll number 72. Yes, that is a problem. See, that is the reason what we have to do, Amma. Still, we have to combine with what we have to combine with the third table. So once you combine with the third table, if at all that value is still existing in the recreation of the original table, then it is not in 5NF. If at all I get the same details, then it is in 5NF. Is it clear? If at all you get the original table after decomposing and recreating back, then it is in 5NF. And if at all you're not getting the original table, there is some loss of information or additional information, then it is not in 5NF. So you have to go with, if at all the number of attributes increases, the decomposition level also increases. So joining the tables, looking at it manually would be a tough job. Since I just wanted you people to know how we are joining the tables, I've just given you an example. Yes, ma, any questions in 5NF? Any questions in 5NF? Please respond, all of you. What about others? So this is about all the different kinds of normal forms, ma. All different kinds of normal forms. So you have to be careful, Amma. See, no one asks you to prove that. So once you have a relation that is in 4NF, if at all you are able to further decompose. So you should be able to further decompose, then only try to decompose. If at all you're not able to decompose the relation, then that would be in your 5NF. So 5NF is, it cannot be further decomposed. You have to make the table into as small tables as possible. That is the only concept in your 5NF. Try to remember that. Okay, so I've discussed about what is joint dependency, an example on that. What is 5NF, an example on that. Okay, now what are the properties of a good decomposition? What are the properties of a good decomposition? So, following are the properties of a good decomposition. The first one is lossless decomposition. That is what I told you when I was talking about your 5NF. And the second one is dependency preservation. The first one is lossless decomposition, and the second one is dependency preservation. Dependency preservation. Okay. One second, ma. Just go through the 5NF for 1 minute. I'll just put the PPT. Yeah, okay. Now see, going back with properties of good decomposition, I told you one is lossless, the second one is dependency preservation, and the third one obviously would be, one second, ma. Sorry, ma. And the third one obviously would be reduction of redundancy. You should be able to reduce redundancy. Then only I say that whatever the decomposition I have done is a good decomposition. So now, what do you mean by lossless decomposition? So the major concept of your decomposition should be the decomposition should be lossless, which means that the information what was present in the original table should not be lost from the relation when the relation was decomposed. Okay, so if at all I have got some information that is existing in the original relation prior to decomposition, that particular information should not be lost once I decompose the original relation into R1, R2, R3, so on. Okay, so that is the concept of your lossless decomposition. And then you have the concept of dependency preservation. So this is one more important feature, Amma. So whenever you are given a relation capital R with a set of functional dependencies, and whenever you decompose the table, so all the dependencies that were holding good with respect to capital R should also be present with respect to the decomposed tables. Or else I can blindly say that the dependency preservation does not exist. So if at all I had 5 dependencies with respect to relation capital R, I had 5 dependencies with respect to relation capital R. Even though one dependency is not preserved, then I say that this leads to non-existence of dependency preservation. So whatever the decomposition you have done is not preserving the dependencies that were existing. So these are the two important concepts now. Now, how do you check whether a decomposition is lossless or lossy decomposition? Lossless or lossy decomposition. So try to understand more. Now what I'm trying to do, how I'm trying to prove that, I have a relation capital R with A, B, C, D, E as its attributes. I'm just trying to prove the first property, first property, which is nothing but lossless decomposition. So R, A, B, C, D, E, and I've got a set of functional dependencies. F is equal to AB implies C, C implies E, B implies D, and E implies A. These are the functional dependencies that are existing. These are the functional dependencies that are existing, and the relation capital R is broken into R1, which is nothing but BCD, R2, nothing but ACE. Okay. Now, what I have to do in order to prove that there is no loss of information would be, I'm just trying to create a table over here with the headings of the table as the attributes of the original relation. Heading of the table here, sorry, heading of the column as the attributes of the relation. So how many are there? A, B, C, D, E, 5. I'm making 5 columns over here. A, B, C, D, E. I hope you can see A, B, C, D, E. And The number of rows would be the number of decomposed tables. The number of rows would be the number of decomposed tables. So here I've got two decomposed tables. So I'm taking R1 as the first row, R2 as the second row. Okay. Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to add a variable which is called as distinguished variable to the attributes that are present in both the relations. I'm just trying to add a distinguished variable. That variable is denoted by small a over here, small a. So see, what are the attributes that are present in R1 is B, C, D. The attributes that are present in R1 is B, C, D. So R1 with respect to B is placed A, R1 with respect to C is placed A, R1 with respect to D is placed A. And these three are the distinguished variables. Okay. And R2, I have got ACE. So under R2, with respect to A, I have put small a. Under R2, with respect to C, I have put small a. Under R2, with respect to E, I have put small a. Now, when do I say this particular decomposition is lossless would be, I should be able to have at least one row. I should be able to have at least one row with all A's. At least one row with all A's. So I should be able to have at least R1 with all 5 A's or R2 with all 5 A's. I should be able to have R1 or R2 with all 5 A's. Then only I say that the decomposition is lossless, or else no. See, if R1 or R2 is filled with all distinguished variables, then we say the decomposition is lossless. Now, how do I add distinguished variables in the empty spaces with respect to either R1 or R2? Let's work out with a small example and 3 rules now. See, I've got 3 steps over here. The first step would be, try to understand it's quite simple. 2 plus rows, minimum 2 or plus rows with distinguished variables for LHS of the FD. 2 plus rows with distinguished variables for LHS of the FD. Now here, second rule is 1 plus rows with distinguished variables for RHS of the FD. 1 plus rows with distinguished variables for RHS of FD. And the last step is 1 plus rows with non-distinguished variables for RHS of FD. Okay, these are the 3 steps what you need to follow. Now, I have an FD over here, A implies B. So I'm just assuming that I've got only 2 attributes in a table, just for the sake of an example I'm taking. And that particular relation is broken into 5 pieces, just an assumption, R1 to R5. Now, I've already filled, assuming I've already filled A with 3 distinguished variables and B with 2 distinguished variables. Just trying to remove this A. Okay, whether I'll be able to add an A or not, I have to see. So see, A implies B. A implies B is the FD. Now, what is the LHS? I can say that LHS is A and RHS is B, in order to make it simple for you. Now, at least 2 rows with distinguished variable for LHS of the FD. At least 2 plus rows with distinguished variables for LHS of the FD. Now, what is LHS? A. Do I have 2 rows with a variable A, Amma? Yes, there are 3 rows here. So the first condition is satisfied. Now, 1 plus rows with distinguished variables for RHS of the FD. 1 plus rows with distinguished variables for RHS. So what is the minimum? Minimum is 1. So for B, I have got one row with a distinguished variable and one row with non-distinguished variable. So I've got 4 rows with non-distinguished variable, not an issue. So all the three rules are satisfied over here. I can just add a distinguished variable. If all the 3 rules are satisfied or 3 steps are satisfied, then I can add a distinguished variable. So this is the way I'm just trying to add a distinguished variable. Now I'll go with the same example over here now. The previous one. See, I've got two decompositions, R1 and R2. Now, looking at the first, I'm looking at the first FD. So what is the LHS with respect to first FD? LHS is AB. Now I have to see whether at least I have got 2 rows with LHS of the FD. So what is LHS ma? AB. Under AB, do I have 2 A's in row 1, 2 A's in row 2? No. So I have to skip this. This is not satisfying the first rule. Go with the second one. C implies E. I'm going with second one. Now second one, C implies E. What is the LHS? C. LHS should have 2 rows with distinguished variables. So do I have 2 rows with distinguished variables? Yes. Now what is the RHS? 1 row with respect to RHS of distinguished variable. So E, under E, I have 1 row which is having a distinguished variable and 1 row which is not having a distinguished variable. So what I can do? I can add 1 distinguished variable. Now looking at the next one, B implies D. So B implies D. Are there 2 rows with respect to B having 2 distinguished variables? No. So this is also invalid. Now next I'm going with E implies A. So with respect to LHS, LHS is E. I have got 2 rows over here. So fine. A is the RHS. 1 row is having a distinguished variable and 1 row is not having a distinguished variable. So I can put an A over here. Now what is happening? I've got a complete row with distinguished variables looking at the FDs. Hence I can say that this particular decomposition is lossless decomposition. And you have to go through the FDs until you are able to put a distinguished variable. And once you feel that you cannot add a distinguished variable to all the elements of a particular row, then you can stop and say that this is a lossy decomposition. Okay, you can again go back to AB implies C, C implies C, B implies D, E implies A. Again, you can go back, Amma. You can go any number of times. But the main job on hand would be you have to fill at least 1 row with distinguished variable in order to say that it is a lossless joint decomposition. Any problems with this, Ma? Any problems with this? What about others, Ma? Only 72 is responding. What about others? Is it clear? So fine, ma. This is about your unit 3. You're done with unit 3. If at all you have any questions, you can ask me, ma. I'll just give you 2 minutes so that you can have a glimpse of whatever you have gone through in the 3rd unit. Just go through the 3rd unit for 2 minutes or 2 or 3 minutes. And then I'll start off with the 4th unit. You can ask me any questions if at all you have any. Yes, ma. Any questions you have? All of you? Ma, are you in the class or no? Is 6K in the class, ma? 6K. See, what were the 3 tables? Subject, professor, professor semester, and subject semester. So based on the common item, you have to combine the join, ma. You have to combine both the tables based on the common item. So what I did with subject, professor, professor semester, I combined with professor. I've just written as what I did: subject, professor, and semester. Okay, now based on the next, this you have to go with the common field. Whatever the common field you are working with, you go with that. You try it once. If at all you're not getting, you can ping me up, ma. Yes, ma, after joining with R1 and R2. After joining with R1 and R2, you have to go. Yes, ma. The common thing you tried with, you tried once 72, try to join it. If at all you're not getting, I'll explain you, ma. Is that okay? Sorry, I closed the sharing. So once you try that example 72, once you're not able to do that, you just tell me. I'll give you a complete process of joining the tables. Okay, ma? Fine. Now going with the concept of transaction management, ma, I'll just cover the basics. Transaction management. Okay. So what do you mean by a transaction first? I've already covered this in the previous class. A transaction is a unit of program execution that accesses and possibly updates various data items. Okay. So a transaction might cause updations to the database items, or it might just read the database items. So what are the basic operations on a particular, with respect to a transaction would be read and write operations, ma. Read and write operations. I'll just give you an example of a small banking example, ma. Banking transaction. See, transaction to transfer rupees 50 from account A to account B. So before actually I start transferring rupees 50 from a particular account A, what I have to do is I have to see whether I have got that 50 rupees or not. In order to do that, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to read the database item A. So read the database item A. Once you see that there is enough amount, what I'm trying to do is A is equal to A minus 50. So here I had around 400. So here what would be the modified value of A would be 400 minus 50 is equal to 350. This is just a process. I did not modify that. I've just removed 50 rupees. And in the third step, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make the value of A as 350. Now here, while I'm trying to read B, the amount is 200. So I read the amount of B as 200. Now then, B is equal to 200 plus 50, whatever the amount I deducted from A, that is what I'm trying to add over here, 50. And here what I'll do is modify this as 250. Now see, before the start of transaction, A had 400 and B had 200. And A plus B was 600. Okay. Now, after the completion of transaction, A is equal to 350 and B is equal to 250. A plus B is again 600. So before and after the execution of a transaction, the database must be in a stable state. Meaning, so the value that was present before the start of a transaction and after successful execution of a transaction should be the same. Should be the same. So that is what a transaction is. That makes your database stay in a consistent state. I hope the example is clear, ma. Now, whenever you're working with transactions, there are two major issues to deal with. Two major issues to deal with. Now, what is the first issue would be failures of various kinds. So there might be power issues, there might be hardware failures, there might be software failures, there might be system crashes, all that stuff. So once there is a failure with respect to a system of any kind, you should see that the database is still in a consistent state. And the second major problem to deal with would be concurrent execution of multiple transactions. Concurrent execution of multiple transactions. You have to see that I should be able to run transactions concurrently, but the concurrent execution of transactions should not affect the other transactions. So if at all I have a transaction T1, I have a transaction T1 and T2 running concurrently, I should see to it that T1 does not affect T2 or T2 does not affect T1. So the values that are being modified by T1 and T1 fails, it should not affect T2. That is what I have to take care. And what would be the problem caused would be, try to understand this now. See, I have read the value of A 400. Then after that, I have deducted amount 50 from A. Then I have written the value of A 350. I have read the value of B. Now here what is happening here is I've just read the value of B. And after reading the value of B, there was a power failure. Maybe there was a power failure or a system failure. I can just say that. Power failure. Now, what will happen would be, try to understand now. A value is 400. Before the start of transaction, A value is 400. B value is 200. After there was a power failure, what is happening here is A value is 350. What is the value of B is 200. It has not been updated to 250. It is only 200. Now here, the value of A plus B before the execution of transaction and after the execution of transaction is not same. So this leads to a problem. Here only I'm talking about 50 rupees. There might be transactions with lakhs of rupees. So if at all these kinds of failures occur, I'll be losing lots of amount. So we have to find a way such that the power failure or the system failure does not lead to the loss of consistency in the database. So these are the two major problems what we are going to work with in our transactions. Then you have got certain properties with respect to transactions. These are called as your acid properties, not the acid what you use in your chemistry lab. It is something different. To preserve the integrity of the database system, we must ensure acid properties. We must ensure acid properties. So A stands for atomicity, C stands for consistency, I stands for isolation, and D stands for durability. A is atomicity, C is consistency, I is isolation, D is durability. And out of all these four, you have already studied atomicity. So atomicity stands for do all or do nothing. Atomicity says do all or do nothing. Meaning, so try to complete the transaction in a single step wherein all the steps are done together, or do not do any of the steps. That is the concept of your atomicity. So see, either all operations of the transactions are properly reflected in the database or none are. So all the operations in the previous case, I had 6 steps now. I had 6 steps. 1, 2, 3. This is what I have written. This is not required. Okay. So I should be able to do all the 6 steps in a single go. Or if at all there was a power failure after writing the value of A, then what I have to do is I have to forego the transaction. I have to abort the transaction. Or else, if at all I continue with the transaction, what will happen is the transaction may make the database stay in an inconsistent manner. So this is about your atomicity. And then you have got consistency. Execution of a transaction in isolation preserves the consistency of the database. I've told you, Amma, whenever you are working with a transaction, you have to see that the database is in a consistent state. Okay, so that is the meaning of consistency. So I'll stop it over here. If at all you have any questions in today's class, you can ask, Ma. You have any questions, you can ask. Or else I'll just start